Would I use this keyboard? No, because it's not white. As usual, I'm going to be as honest and fair as I can in these reviews, even though I got the thing for free. If the thing is bad, I'll just say it. Companies can wipe their tears with the dollar bills they make from the huge sales numbers anyways. This keyboard might not be for me, but it might be for you. Or not. My job is just to tell you what this keyboard is and isn't. But to be honest, at the alpha keys, I couldn't really tell that they were pinging too clearly, until I took out my phone to record how it sounded. Phone camera mics usually pick up the higher frequencies that sometimes even your ears can't hear normally. Yeah, there's a couple of times when my phone actually picked up ticking from my stabilizers that I couldn't hear in the first place. These Yellow Pros are factory looped really well. They're very smooth and the sound is very nice to me. Though one thing about these switches is that I noticed they are quite deep in sound and also a little muted. Even though they are a little more on the muted side, I think they are definitely a great choice for people who want to have a dirt cheap switch that sounds nice that you don't need to loop at all. Banana splits are factory looped by default, but I thought they weren't smooth enough, so I added a bit more Krytox 205G0 to the bottom housing sliders. The switch got a little smoother in the end, and I think my looping job didn't change the sound that much. Okay, this is just a footnote about how I use this loop station wrong. You're supposed to orientate it this way, where you can see the gaps here, instead of the other way like this, because if you do it this way, you put on the cap, you can't put it down, but if you do it this way, the holes means that you can just slide it in like that. I probably should have re-looped the stems myself, but I didn't want to accidentally overloop the switch. Then I back looped the springs with Krytox 105 and filmed the switch with Desky films. These are looped with Krytox 205G0, filmed with Desky films too, and spring swapped to 50-gram springs here actually. The Boba U40s aren't factory looped or anything, so I had to loop with the usual Krytox 205G0 and back loop the springs with Krytox 105. And also I didn't film these because I ran out of films. Opening out the box, we are greeted with the top half with everything and the bottom half with the case foam. To remove the plate, PCB, and switches from the top case, I had to remove 3 keycaps at the top left and unclip the ribbon cable connecting the PCB to the USB ports. Sobotain is really sticky, so I usually leave the top part of the Sobotain with the plastic wrapping, because once while working on another keyboard, I took off the plastic wrapping on the top of that exposed part, and it kind of ended up sticking to the bottom of the PCB of the keyboard, effectively gluing the entire keyboard shut. It took a lot of effort taking that apart. I'm not sure how much leaving the top wrapping on the Sobotain changes the sound, so if you know, right, please let me know in the comments. I added some masking tape next to the screw points on the top casing. In his tutorial, he used 2 layers, but for mine, I think my masking tape is pretty thin, so I went with 3 layers instead. Next up was the stabilizers. To remove the plate from the PCB, there are 6 gold screw points on the back of the PCB. I unscrewed them and then unscrewed the stabilizer screws, which are silver in color on the back too. When I got the stabilizers out, I decided to holy mod them to make sure that they were extra perfect. As for what the holy mod is and how to do it, I recommend watching Hamaji Neo's video on it. Go watch it. But since these stabilizers are factory lubed, I had to wash them first. So I got 2 plastic containers, one with water and the other with soap water, and I also got a toothbrush. Then it was time to do a lot of washing in the soap water and then a lot of washing in the normal water with the toothbrush to get the soap off. Also, when I dry factory loop stabilizers that I washed, I usually twist the end of a tissue paper like this and then poke it through. I also try to pull on the tissue paper a bit because it helps in getting the insides of the stabilizer stem extra clean. And also, if you have alcohol wipes, you can try doing this exact same thing too. By the way, with alcohol wipes, they do even better at removing grease and lube from stabilizers. Then it was time to actually holy mod them. Some people don't like the holy mod because it's really hard to know how big to cut the fabric band-aid into. For me, I usually cut it in this sloping thick to thin fashion. It makes it easier to insert the thinner end into the stabilizer and then have the thicker end rest snug inside of it. It's okay that I cut the other end thinner because it's going to go into the top hole of the stabilizer anyway, so it's not going to affect much. Some people suggest using fabric tape for the holy mod because this means that you don't need to keep wasting a ton of band-aids. But for me, I prefer using band-aids because on band-aids they have the cotton part of it, which I actually cut up and used to stick onto the PCB next to the stabilizer hole inserts. This band-aids on the PCB is following this brilliant tutorial by Luke Mason. Go watch this video to understand why this helps stop ticking. For him, he only used 1 layer of the cotton part of the band-aid. For me, I used 2 layers for the spacebar because it wasn't enough, but for the rest of the stabilizers, I only used 1 layer. After that, it was time to tune my wires. I used my phone as a flat surface to test if they were even, and then I used a tweezer on each side to twist them right. When it was all good, it was time to loop the stabilizer housing and add a generous amount of 205G0 on the end of the wires, and then put them back together and test them. Oh my god, is it ticking? Okay, it's perfect. I thought that maybe the keyboard sounded the same because the foam was absorbing too much of the sound. So I decided to try removing the Sobotain and replacing it with the foam that they provided, and hey, turns out that you can just use the foam they gave because like the masking tape still stops the ping. So why did I buy Sobotain again? After changing the case foam back to the default case foam, I removed the plate foam and tested the keyboard because, I mean, maybe without the plate foam it would sound like different. And turns out it still sounds the same. I mean, without the plate foam, it does sound a bit more hollow and a little bit more higher pitched. So yeah, the tape mod is really optional if you're not going to use something like PE foam. PE foam meaning polyethylene foam. It's a thing you get in packaging sometimes. You take the PE foam and then you put it in between the PCB and the plate and underneath any plate foam you have, and then just insert the switches through it. But then again, it's preference. I personally am a fan of PE foam. I am a very basic bitch. But one thing I know about PE foam keyboards, the spacebar from each keyboard still sounds different. Don't quote me on that though, I might be wrong. I've only PE foamed like 8 keyboards so far. So yeah, basically if you're looking for a budget keyboard to PE foam, you're mostly going to be looking for the perfect PE foam spacebar sound that you would like. And it is very, very beginner friendly to mod because all you need is 1. Masking tape, 2. Tweezers to tune the stabilizer wires, 3. A toothbrush and 2 containers of water to wash the stabilizers, 4. Fabric band-aids for the Holy mod and the Luke Mason mod, 5. Krytox 205G0 lube and a paintbrush to loop the stabilizers. That's really not many things at all. But of course, I mean, that's not including any switch openers if you want to like get other switches that you have to loop yourself. And then also, of course, if you want to PE foam the keyboard, you need to buy PE foam. For me, I got a shit ton of it for $2 from my local Daiso in the kitchen section.